tend to probably be more inclined to go with a solution recommended by a partner, a media partner that they've been working with for a long time. So the conversion,
That's
I
right.
expect, should be high in this specific context.
That's exactly right. And so, these are not necessarily, are a little bit lower margin businesses for them, but it's one that it allows them to grow revenues and continue to build a relationship. And they are structured as an unbiased entity so that if it doesn't make as much sense to buy with the Houston Chronicle to achieve the company's objectives, that's fine. They just get a small margin off the top of providing, digital services elsewhere.
Because technically, that is it's a sales augmentation more than an adjacency from the core. I mean, in reality, a newspaper company is still a content company, and what we're talking about is really adding assets that complement the sales force in terms of being able to cross-sell, as opposed to stay close to the adjacency and get the content better, more quality, all the things that a content company should be doing. So that's an adjacency more on the Salesforce side as opposed to the content side. So I understand what you're saying in terms of maintaining the separation and the siloed between the two in terms of not pushing products that don't make sense for the customer base. So in that perspective, I hate to take it down the Gannett immediately, but as you've probably seen, their acquisition of Reach Local, recently. So that's along the lines of what you're describing in terms of strong, robust strategic moves that may pay off that pays off immediately and not even down the line.
Not exactly. So I would say it's all about the execution, right? So and Hearst actually has a parallel as well, where they've got a national local solution called Local Edge that primarily is a search engine marketing solution.
Yep.
And it's actually used by non-Hearst businesses as well. So they work with local providers besides just the properties, and they have to because that's the only way they make their business work. But even then, you have to kind of sell into even the Hearst local properties to get them to use and promote the Local Edge content. So the key is understanding to what degree the local properties are adaptable and able to adopt and incorporate and be able to promote other types of services and capabilities. So there is an organizational readiness component that is worth pressure testing.
So you're saying it's not a plug and play. It takes some time to sort of smoothen out the process and understand where the integration works, when it doesn't, when it's appropriate to push it, when it's not, and just get the sales force to work together. I presume a newspaper sales force is radically different than a technology sales force as well.
Correct.
So the
That's
two
exactly
have got to find a balance in terms of how to work together.
And I'll just give you a specific example. So you've got an Albany sales rep who knows how to sell the newspaper or knows how to used to sell classified ads, now sells a mix of the print ads and some digital ads. But, still, if you look at the bulk of their revenues that they make, it's still going to be from the print ads, if they can sell those print ads from the local provider. And then you get this new service called Local Edge or Reach Local or Local IQ. And this is, someone who's been selling for 20 years, the same set of small to medium-sized businesses. And if the economics aren't aligned for that local person, are they really going to spend the time to do it? Are they, if it's a small portion of what they'd still rather sell in the bigger print ad buy, even though it's a declining business. And this is, margin upside. If they are going in to sell a solution to these, places that they have had relationships with, if they are not technology forward leaning, which a lot of local newspapers aren't, or teams at least at local newspapers aren't, it still is a ramp-up period to get them to understand the product, understand how it works. Again, and they also have to execute on it as well, right? There's this new organization that they hadn't worked with before. Is it going to deliver value for their clients? Still unproven to them. You know, they still are going to stick with the tried and true until they've got to the point where they have comfort that this is both meaningful in terms of revenue, and two, probably more importantly, is that it actually is delivering value for their customer.
And how would you describe, this is perfect, so thank you for clarifying that. How would you describe the competition in terms of advertising sales in the local marketplace? And I'm talking in general. I presume grocery stores, department stores at the local base are bombarded with opportunities to invest, whether it's digital, whether it's print, a local cable, all those things. How do you think they perceive a local newspaper going to them and presenting digital buying opportunities, or digital marketing services, I should say, and in the context of everything that is going on with mobile ads, different agencies, different providers, different solutions, and different media outlets?
Yeah. So this is, again, where I do think that the local newspapers do have a little bit of an edge. But there is a lot of competition. So whoever's going to be most credible. So as you can imagine today, a local merchant gets lots of solicitation around local newspapers, local broadcast television. They get, penny saver flyers and, local blogs or community publications and so forth. So they get all these different sources for which to advertise. I do think that a local newspaper who is delivering upon their goal of driving new customers and driving like in-store sales has an ability to be credible in speaking to this audience, because they probably are one of the bigger spend areas for groceries or a local sports store or so forth. Relative portion of the budget, it's probably on the higher side, and as a result, they have that depth of relationship. And it's that depth of relationship, if it's someone who they've been working with for 10, 20 years, and that person comes in and says, hey, I've actually got a solution to cover your digital side as well, and I trust it, there's more willingness to say, hey, I'd be willing to turn it over, as opposed to some new entrant who doesn't understand their objectives, doesn't understand the metrics that they're looking to solve, and it's hard to compare apples to oranges. If you kind of came in and said, hey, I've got a solution, I'll give you the full picture, and you'll get everything that you've gotten before, I'll just make it easier for you for the new avenues of advertising, it's a credible story. Right. It's just got to get the execution of that story is hard. It's a lot harder than I think most anticipate, and it takes longer than people expect.
Understood. Since we touched upon this local ad buying and specifically the Gannett Reach local asset, help me sort of get an understanding from your perspective on how Gannett is positioned in this context. I'll tell you sort of high level how we're viewing it at the moment. I'd love to sort of validate or please chime in and poke holes in our thesis. So, strong company over the years, obviously public over the years, grew by acquisition. So what we see on the top line, which is generally with a couple of exceptions in 2013-14, have been posting growth at the 3 to 4%. That's polluted, primarily driven by M&A. So when you strip out the M&A component, the same store sales tend to sort of track at market with declines in the 7 to 8%, all combined, so circulation and advertising. Still lagging a little bit behind from a digital perspective. I think percent on your revenues are still in the 10 to 12% of total revenues are digital. Now with this acquisition, it might go up significantly since Reach Local is a $500 million in revenue asset. So they might actually be able to hit the $1 billion, which